Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us again for what we have named Transforming the World Through Reflection. Today, we're going to continue the conversation exploring the experience of creativity in the business world. The entire series has explored the way the pandemic and social injustice intersect. And in that process, we keep finding opportunities to talk about how that shows up, how that manifests in the business world. And we're going to continue that conversation. My name is Melissa Shepard Williams, and now I want to introduce to you two amazing professionals and dear friends of mine. First, meet Sonia Smith-Kang, who, after years and years, over 15 years of working as a registered nurse, decided to make a shift in her life and become a social impact entrepreneur. And that we have been able to see and enjoy for years. Her work as a fashion designer for children for a line named MixedUp Clothing has been featured on several platforms, NBC, CBS, HuffPost, Latina Magazine, you name it. And there's so much work that we will talk about that Sonia has done to be of service to the community. Now, I would like you to meet Maritza Collins. Maritza is a professional in the marketing area, and she coordinates events nationally and internationally. So we have two very rich sources of information from these two beautiful ladies. So, shall we begin?
Absolutely.
Let's
Thank you.
jump in. Let's jump in. First, I'd like to ask both of you, now that we've been through this pandemic for months, more months than perhaps we expected, I'm wondering what are the things that are of greatest concern to you as we're moving through this?
Yeah, for me, I'll jump in. First of all, I want to thank you for having me and having this platform that helps so many. I want to thank you for it, the work that you do as well. And I'm honored to be on this panel with Maritza as well. The things that are I if you ask me who is Sonia, I say Sonia. I first and foremost am a mom. I have 4 children. I'm a founder. I have a small business, and then I'm also, I'm an activist. So if I kind of took those arms of who I am and the hats that I wear, that I first and foremost is the health and well-being of my family, my children. So those are some of the concerns, making sure that we are safe and that my community, and then we continue to extend that out. So those are top of mind for me, making sure that I can provide for my team with MixedUp Clothing. Um, so it's the financial, it's the health piece, and it's the well-being piece. So all those are kind of top of mind for me.
Great priorities. I mean, so many to try to navigate simultaneously.
Yes. Yes, I have to agree with Sonia. Definitely health the most. We have always known our health is important. I think when things like this happen, even we're much more aware of how delicate our health is. In a second, it just kind of spreads everywhere and you can pick it up. So health, but health, physical, mental. I think a lot of people in this time, you have a lot of time at home thinking. Some people are not employed. So there's a lot of time to think. And a lot of people are exploring. So, figuring out, getting the help you need, if it's financial or mental, you know, don't underestimate that, because it's very, very important. And then balance. I think one of the big things that now we're all work from home, we're so close to work all the time that it's found, you know, that a lot of people are suffering from burnout because there's a disbalance. You know, the computer is 5 steps away, and let me just send this one email, and let me just do this one thing. So I feel like help balance. And then how do we prepare for the future? Because I don't know when we're gonna go back, or if ever we're gonna go back the way we were before the pandemic, because so much has changed. So what is it going to be, and how we're gonna be ready for that?
As I'm listening to you reflect about the possibility of burnout, you know, given all the things that people are navigating, and especially because they're doing it at home, now you have to deal with your professional life at home as well. And then, you know, we've talked about people with children and how this is a new way of being with your children's school life. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so losing balance is something that I think we're all candidates for, even those of us with great self-care habits. If we don't pause long enough, we can lose sight of ways of taking care of ourselves. As you know, the topic of burnout is near and dear to my heart, having experienced it myself and still learning about it and sharing what I'm learning in my work. The pandemic definitely is a perfect storm for burnout. And so many of us are called to figure out a way to be flexible. So for the two of you in your fields of work, how do you see that you're meeting this crisis with creativity? How do you see yourselves meeting it with creativity?
Sure, you want me to go ahead? Go ahead, Sunny.
Sure. Let's see. I think top for me is really allowing myself grace, and really allowing myself the not only grace within myself but of others, and really just understanding that this is new for all of us. I usually start my Zoom calls with this disclaimer saying I have 4 kids that are out there either taking classes. At any time, these doors are going to open, and I would hope that the person who's on the other end knows that, you know, all that other stuff, the apologies we used to make, you know, all of that is this new, you know, we need to understand each other.
Yes.
And that takes time. And that also carries over into my creativity, that those that are even making our my clothing or my masks, I need to make sure that they're also practicing self-care, and that they're safe, and that they're at a social distance. So there's all this things that didn't come into mind before that are now, you know, we're having to kind of navigate through. And it doesn't change the message that I want to bring out, which is using our culture as one of the ways that brings us comfort. We talked about that with our masks, in that, you know, drawing on our culture is one of the ways that we get through a lot of the challenges that we face. So my mission, my message, all of that has not changed. The way I deliver it, the way I make it, those might have changed. But the overall who we are as a business, that won't change. We're going to be here to talk about this, you know, social justice, the activism work, diversity, inclusion, equity does not change. But how I go about it, that part has changed a little, to make sure that those that are carrying out my message are safe as well.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Sonia. So you have found it to be a creative challenge as it relates to the delivery of a consistent message that, flows throughout your entire brand. Social justice, social justice,
Yeah,
cultural appreciation.
yeah, I think, even the way, and I'm sure Maritza can talk to this part is, you're also trying to market yourself during a time where folks may not be, they may be facing their own challenges, and you're trying to say, hey, shop at my store, maybe they're not, so really understanding what is going on in your community, as with your neighbors, in your world, and really kind of changing the way you deliver your message. Your message can be the same, but are you going to do it on a day that something heavy drops? No, those kind of things are, are something that we have to kind of change. Our mindset has to change. The old way of marketing and advertising and delivering, are going to change, and we have to be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Your thoughts, Mighty?
I definitely agree with Sonia, and I feel like the companies that are able to infuse empathy in their message are the ones that are getting through, because you need to acknowledge it. You have to talk about the elephant, and this is not even an elephant. This is a whole collaboration of elephants. Like, it's the whole, the whole tribe of elephants there. So we can't ignore it. So I found that from the beginning, the companies that were able to say, it's been a tough year. How can we help you? They have reached out, they have given, they have changed how they do their business to help the greater good of the ones that people are flocking. Because you still need groceries, you still need this. But if you see a campaign that mentions that, and I'm here to help you, and if you need anything, then you're like, those people are they're thinking about us. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, many companies like restaurants, immediately those got closed, but they have providers and they had obligations. They were figuring out what to do. So many restaurants became kind of like a corner store, and they were selling their provisions so people had what to eat, because the grocery store was wiped out. And then any company that was able to do that, think differently, even restaurants that could deliver, the curbside pickup. I feel like they always say that necessity is the mother of all invention. And boy, have we seen new inventions.
Yes.
There's all kind of ways of doing things that we didn't do a year ago. Even now that the restaurants are open, I went to Santa Barbara not that long ago. I wanted to take a change of scenery, and we drove up there, and State Street, they closed it so the restaurants could have their seats on that street with enough distance for people to be able to go out. So a lot of creative thinking going on out there.
Yeah.
And companies that are doing that are the ones that people, I think, are flocking and doing the best, and are able to navigate this pandemic. Also, companies that didn't think they could have their people work from home, now they're like, wait a minute, we can, and they've stayed in business, and they've helped the greater good, because now we have, those people are now not unemployed, because they're able to work from their home, when there was many companies that, 9 months ago were like, nope, you need to be here every day. Now they realize we can work from home and help.
Yeah. So as you're saying, when we let our humanity show, when we just validate that we're going through a very difficult time, and it happens to be global, people feel heard and understood. And so that translates into who people do business with. And, I was listening to you, I thought of that old adage, presentation is everything. It feels like now more than ever, presentation is everything. Do you show kindness? Do you show understanding? Like you said, do you show empathy? I mean, how could that not make a difference in the way business operates today? It's interesting. It's interesting.
I would also add, you know, the intention behind it, I think is also what is, you know, the differentiator in how businesses are showing themselves in being able to navigate. Also, so intention for me, in addition to what you said, as well as authenticity, I think, and vulnerability. So it's like this, you know, thing where there's different ways of showing that you're caring, that you understand, and that you see what your end consumer is needing. You know, as the multicultural consumer, we have trillions in spending power, right? And we are now being intentional with our dollars. And so if brands and companies don't get on board, they are leaving money on the table. We are now saying, we have the money. What are you doing that speaks to who I am as a person, who I want, you know, I want to be behind a brand that has, you know, the best of intentions, that are using ethically sourced, whatever it is, that they are maybe giving back. They are showing that, you know, we may not understand the plight, but we're going to learn about what it is. So that vulnerability, that authenticity, that saying, you know, we are here, we believe in you. We may not always get it right. We're going to ask you for help. We want your support. How can we do this? Those are the brands that are going to be able to move and pivot and navigate this new uncharted territory.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
my hope is that for many of the well-established business practices that have been around for generations, that they open themselves up to rethink ways of conducting business, ways of engaging with personnel that may really add up to true productivity, where it's more about quality than quantity, because you're paying attention to the quality of relationships among the team members. You know, as I was listening to you, Sonia, when you were talking about, you know, what do I need to learn to do differently? Hopefully, this will apply not only to brand new businesses, you know, new launches, but also to those well-established businesses that have been around for generations. Hopefully, this will be a shift in a positive direction.
Yes. I'm seeing, definitely seeing a lot of companies, their ads. You can see in their advertising who they're featuring, what they're featuring, you know, and your social media, which is always easier to pivot online than is on TV. You know, TV has a longer lead time, but online you can see the post and what they're putting. A lot of companies, you know, supporting or being behind like minority owned, women, Black businesses. You've seen a lot more larger companies advertising that they're doing it. Many of them may have been doing it before, but they weren't necessarily calling attention to it. And now they're like, you know, I support this and this is important to me. And diversity and inclusion is becoming a bigger conversation in companies worldwide.
Exactly. I'm wondering about the people who are just now flirting with starting a business, because I remember back in 2008 when
Mhm.
the recession here in the US, so many people, again, because necessity is the mother of invention, like you said, Mari, so many people started businesses because bills needed to be paid. And they started businesses based on hobbies and thought to themselves, oh my goodness, I could have been doing this all along, having multiple streams of income as opposed to doing it just because I'm in crisis. So I'm wondering what you would invite people to reflect on, people who are right now flirting with starting a business, in the middle of this particular crisis, which actually is a global one?
I would definitely see this as, you know, that silver lining in this time. It's really giving folks an opportunity to say, do I really want the commute? Do I really want, you know, some of the things that, you know, be having a job, being, you know, what that means to them. It's really a time where they are being a little bit more um, figuring out what it is that they want and what life they're creating. And I think this is a great time to kind of figure out, you know, who am I as a person and who is it that I want to present, and how can, you know, what are my likes? What are, you know, the things that I, whether they as a hobby, how can I turn my hobby into a business and what that means? But, you know, always ask, you know, what is it? What is my mission? What is my, what do I want to present? And I think right now is the perfect time to kind of to set up and start a business. Most things can be done online. There's advocacy groups that small business, there's minority owned we banks, there are minority diversity supplier groups that help at this time so that you can get certified, so that you can get your business plan, so that you can, you know, get your account, even your business account. So right now is, think about it. Think about what you want to do and how can I turn a business, make it a business, and start.
Right. Maddie, what are your thoughts?
So I feel that now people also are discovering that they can do some of these things from home. I think at one point people may have not thought, well, I can't do that. You need a brick and mortar space to do that. But now that we're all working remotely, you're like, you know, I guess I can do this at home. But not only they're working remotely with everybody in the family there, the kids there. So if you could do it under those circumstances, you could do it under any circumstances. Mm-hmm. And I feel like people now are realizing, you know, what is it that people need? I think it wouldn't be coincidental that some people may have changed what the business they were going to open. Now they're like, okay, wait a minute, that's not the business that would work in this time, but what would? You know, a lot of times services or things that you would use is a good business because the same way you need it, other people need it. You know, they've always said, like, when people invented Post-its and things like that, it's like they needed a note that was sticky, and then it became this thing, and now we can't live without Post-its. And there's many other items like that that became born, again, by necessity was the mother of all invention. And I feel like if somebody find that they're consuming or having to create something because it's not available out there, then they would probably think, hey, I could do this and be of service.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like because we're all thrust into this situation of having to do work remotely, if we ever wondered about a business idea and we put it out of our minds and now we're revisiting the idea, it almost sounds like excuses are being dismantled. Excuses are being dismantled. Love that. So instead of yes, but, yes, and. Yes, I'm scared, and I can reach out to this person, that person, this organization, you know, as you were listing resources, Sonia. So people are discovering options. You know, it's amazing how when you're forced into a situation where you are like stopped, it's a screeching halt for this world. You end up thinking about things that you didn't give yourself the opportunity to think about before. In that busyness, the everyday busyness, the everyday.
Yeah, and definitely the barriers to entry have, I believe, changed as well. And I think it's important to note that some of the challenges that the BIPOC founders have faced were real. But right now, some of those barriers to entry have changed. So I think that is also something that new entrepreneurs can take advantage of. And and some of the loans that weren't necessarily given out and approved may now be the timing is better. And I think it's so you're absolutely right. Enough with the excuses. It's now, let's go. Let's take this time. Let's start reaching out and seeing if what I can do to start this business, and instead of keeping it just as an idea.
Yeah. Especially when our ancestors have done so much, so creatively to survive. So much and so creatively to survive. And with resources that are very different from the ones that exist right now. And all of this is aligned with the importance of reflecting on how all the social injustice that's been going on for generations right now, it's as visible as it needs to be. It's not new, but it is now extremely visible to those of us who've been very aware of it, as well as those who have avoided being aware of it. So this is a time to get creative and figure out how to make the most of what resources we have and reach out to other sources of support. We need each other. Speaking of needing each other, how are businesses building community these days?
Well, I feel some of the examples that I gave earlier about like restaurants and having having the goods, and they kind of found a way of working around it. I think that's big, and people realizing like the only way we're gonna make it is by all of us working together. So I think even people are willing to give somebody a chance that's a newbie, like Sonia was mentioning, because they see the importance of community. If we don't help each other, we're not going to make it out on the other side.
Right.
Yeah, I think with businesses building community, to that point, I think we are kind of finding, if within our social networks, within our social media channels, whether it's using a hashtag and following that hashtag and using it on your own social media, you're saying that this is what I believe in, and the community around it. And so by also, maybe for me, it's using brand ambassadors who believe in the mission and sharing our clothes, our face masks, and it's saying, that they believe in, I'm going to help, foster this community by sharing with them and giving them an opportunity. What we did with the masks is we had a buy one, donate one initiative. So the community that was growing was those that said, well, I need a mask first of all, but I also want to give back, and she's giving back. So let's figure out how to partner with her and help support her get that out there. So you have to, as a business owner, find out, who it is that you are, but also find the community that is also wanting to do that, but just want to find a way to do that.
Yes. I think I agree. Many people want to help. They don't know how, but if somebody that they already patronize or follow or believe in shows them a lead, they're like, I never thought of that. Because, around my house, there was a restaurant at the beginning of the pandemic, and they still do it. They were feeding a lot of the emergency workers or like frontline hospital. So what they were doing is that you could buy a meal for a hospital worker or first responder. So you would order your lunch and then donate X amount of dollars, and they have that money, and twice a week they would drop off the food at different hospitals nearby. And they were donating hundreds of meals every time they did it, because people would either add one to theirs when they were ordering, or just simply donated the money. And then they had some companies that would say, okay, we'll donate, match what people donated. So they would do a few hundred a week. Well, and I think they got into the thousands, and they did it for many months. And I'm sure other people did the same. Many restaurants and places were donating also first emergency items, masks, or whatever they had to whoever needed it. Companies were coming together to do so. So
more partnerships are becoming visible.
yes.
It's amazing what crisis will do. So hopefully more and more people are reflecting on what opportunities are available in this situation to be of service, and to be of service in the most rich way, because more partnerships are visible. They've been available as far as being part of the community, but not necessarily visible to everyone, especially people who don't have access to certain forms of technology. We've talked in earlier episodes of this series that, we easily talk about all this telework and teleschool, and yet not everybody has access to the resources we take for granted. It move in this pandemic the way that so many people are doing. But still, those of us who have access to the technology and are now noticing more and more of all these different kinds of needs that have gone unattended for so many years, we can be the ones to reach out. So more resources are available to who truly needs them. So partnerships. On that note of partnerships, I really want to consult with the two of you on this idea that you hear in business so frequently about business competitors. Would you say that this situation is helping people to throw that notion out the window, business competition, and just bring in the idea of business collaboration?
It's funny, I wrote down, you can see on my little notes here, it's collaboration over competition.
Yes.
And so, on that same note, you could throw another C in there, community over competition. You're exactly right. And again, that goes to, with the partnerships, it's really looking and saying who's behind the brand and what they're doing, and saying, hey, I believe in what you're doing, here's this, I'd like to partner with you. And for instance, there was a Shared Harvest. They are Black doctors who are doing testing in vulnerable populations, and we supplied masks for them. And so it's saying, I believe, again, to Maritza's point, I believe in what you're doing. I can't go out and do testing, but I see that that's what you're doing. Let me provide this. And then how about the cafe down the street? Maybe they can put together, boxes to help. And together we are tackling the issue of helping vulnerable populations that need us. And if you seen me as a competitor, then I do not want that. I will keep moving forward and finding a brand or a partnership that really believes in the same mission.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So this is moving us away from those networking events where people mindlessly exchange business cards that they have no intention on following up with. This is really inviting us to truly get to know each other, truly learn about each other's gifts. We all have unique gifts. This competition idea is Boulder Dash. Right?
Can I just share? I was on a call today, and do you know the first question, after the hellos and whatnots, it was asking about who's on their team. You know, I want to know if there's a diverse, you know, person on their team. What does that look like? What are they doing in, you know, the DEI space? That would have been unheard of before. You know, there were these, you know, social mores or, you know, what have you, of what you were able to ask. And you were just thankful that you got a call, that you were able to, you know, somebody was taking their time out. No, I want to know, you know, who are the Black and brown people on your team? I need to know, who are you supporting? What do your portfolios look like? And this is I'm interviewing you as much as you are interviewing me. And I think there's power to that. And I think right now it's really just kind of taking this time and this movement that we are having and really getting to the you know, the bottom line of who we are and what we're about.
And I think companies are no longer allowed, not allowed, people don't want to align with companies that don't have diversity, because that's, you know, they would say in the olden time is hogwash, because, you know, they're talking one thing, but they're not doing it. If nobody in your board and nobody in your leadership is diverse, how are you talking about, I believe in you know, diversity and inclusion, when you don't do it? You know, you preach it, but you don't do it. Exactly. I think also a lot of companies now realize that they have to offer training, because like I just recently went on a training on uncomfortable conversations and biases, like kind of discussing, you know, people have biases, and a training that I don't even know they would have had a while back, you know, and things that companies are now talking about. There's a lot of diverse inclusion and diversity conversations and trainings happening to make sure that everybody is on board. If this is a serious matter for that company, they're making sure that everybody in their team is trained and understands the importance.
Yeah, I'm thankful for that, because as you were both saying, we are right now in a time of, really, it's a time of reckoning and really evaluating, well, wait a minute, are my values aligned with the values that the workplace preaches that they have? Are they just preaching it, or are they practicing it? Is there alignment? If there is no alignment, does that mean that maybe I need to work somewhere else? Do I need to maybe open my own business? I mean, it just really feels like there's this ongoing reflection about values. What are my values? And are my actions matching up with my values? And then for businesses, like you were saying, Maritza, it just sounds like more and more, and because of the social justice discourse, because of structural oppression that makes it so that businesses, among many other entities, have set up things in a way that's strategic, you know, to be in favor of the oppressor. Now, all these trainings say, wait a minute, accountability. So institutional accountability is the banner these days. You know, how accountable are the businesses? This is key. And it is a time when it looks like no one is going to be allowed to get away with murder, because, you know, eyes are on everyone now.
Absolutely. And I think now that, you know, information is so available, the consumer, anybody can get that information, because before, you know, it wasn't as readily available. Now companies have to have, either the company puts it or somebody writes up about them, but companies are putting a lot more out there, easier to get. Like you can get anybody's annual report, you could see who are on their board, who works there, everything. So people are aware, like, you know, you don't try to give me some, you know, half-baked story, because I'm looking at who's the makeup of your company or your management, and I see, or who you sponsor, what activities you sponsor, or what you're doing for the community is, I see it, because now everybody's doing it and posting it, so we all know.
right. You know, on that note, I would like to ask what projects are coming up for both of you. We've had private conversations about these projects, so I'm wondering if there's something you'd like to share that you're working on because of how this situation is moving you in a new direction. Or maybe not in a new direction, but more of you is being called out.
I love that. I am living out loud now.
Yes.
I love it.
I am, things that I was leery of and afraid, would folks accept it? Would they understand it? Now I am like this unapologetic, founder that is saying, um, you know, for instance, I have a book that I've been sitting on that I wrote, have the manuscript for, and it's just it's just retelling the ABC story, right? Growing up with my kids growing up, A wasn't for apple, B wasn't for banana. As someone who's an Afro-Latina, married to a Korean man, having these 4 little kids, A wasn't for apple, it's for arroz con pollo, B
Yes.
was for, or we got M for mofongo. There were like all these different, K was for kimchi, this whole thing. And I was so afraid that folks would be like, what is she doing? I don't understand. She's so whatever it was. Now I'm saying, again, that living out loud that is saying, I'm going to write my book because it's not there. I'm going to put up the shirts and the onesies and because there's got to be somebody else who feels the same way, that wants to see themselves reflected in an accurate way. And whether that's just for my family who needed to see it, it touched somebody. And I think that's what I'm finding within myself and within my creativity. I'm not going to talk myself out of whatever it is that I've talked myself out of. Now it's just, it's really just saying, this is who you are. And there's so many of us, and we need to support one another, and we need to see one another. And I'm just gonna make it, I'm gonna create it. And that's healing for me.
Beautiful. Healing. Saying yes.
And haven't you seen that once you put it out there, you realize, I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that could have used it or enjoyed it, or, it's amazing, because when we're by ourselves or in our heads, we're like, we're the only one that fill in the blank. But the reality, there is so many people in the world. You can't be the only one that fill in the blank. So once you put it out there, it becomes contagious. It takes a life of its own. In my case, I've always loved to cook and entertain and, recommend restaurants. I guess from my events days, actually growing up, my family loves different kind of foods and entertaining and setting everything up to you eat to your eyes. And so I decided, after I've had many years of conversations with Melissa and many other my friends about food and where to go and where to get this and cooking, to start a small group with friends about, food, and you post your food and you talk recipes and exchange. And it started with a couple people. Now it's over 130 people. And we're having fun doing it. I did my first kind of instructional video of it's called Plátano 101, which is basically about plantains and integrating it into food. So people are enjoying it. I enjoyed making it, and people are enjoying it, because sometimes you see things and you don't know how to use it or why. And many people are adding now patacon to their patacones and plátanos to their diet, and other people are getting an opportunity to share. In our group, there's quite a few people that love to cook, and we live vicariously through them and see all the delicious, and you get ideas. I think now that we're home, we talked about necessity being the mother of invention. A lot of people find themselves cooking because they're not running out as much. and they're not picking stuff up when they're on the street because they're not in the street. So people, if you like to cook or enjoy eating, people are doing more of that. And you always find a good recipe and you want to share it. So that's a hobby that's becoming a lot of fun and a way of, de-stressing.
Yeah.
I love that. I got to tell you, in what I heard as well, and was that, it's also building bridges. There's different cultures that, a banana or a plantain is one thing, but we use it in this, and then the conversation gets started about, culture, and then we put it here, and this is, and all of a sudden it normalizes these conversations and helps us think, wow, we're not as different as, folks would want us to believe, that there's this beauty in the diversity that is there. And I think, I know you see that, but that is what I heard as well. And food is one of those things that brings folks together and allows us to share and touch on, we talk about our ancestors. It harkens back to what we were taught, what we, how we cooked, how we pass on tradition, how we share. So food and the community you are growing it's bigger than just the little plantain that you think that, I'm just going to talk about 101 ways of the plantain. There's so much there. And I think that's so beautiful. Can you add me to the group?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The more the merrier.
It's been such a
Absolutely.
group. And I think it's so wonderful that while we're all going through a difficult time in different ways, different experiences of loss, we're also gaining in that we're reconnecting with our imagination. We are learning more things about ourselves. I know for me too, I just to have this series, who knew I'd be doing this, but I felt it was my way of activism. I had to find a way to invite people into reflection because it is what helps us catch perspective. And with all that we're going through, it just felt like a necessary thing to promote. And here we are 3 months later with this series. And I've learned so much from everyone that has been part of it, just like you. As it relates to other projects, I'm finding new ways to teach about the material in my book about burnout. So many new things are floating, like they are for all of us. I just think that the bottom line is this year has really shaken us up so much that we really cannot afford to ignore our gifts. We need to amplify our gifts. Like you were saying, Sonia, living out loud. We must amplify our gifts. If fear wants to come for the walk, well, okay. Imagination will keep us going. Will keep us going. I want to thank you both for, taking the time to be here and share your thoughts, share your concerns, your suggestions, stirring up some creativity in us. This is wonderful. I thank you so much for all the work that you do for the community. You serve the community so richly, and I'm thankful.
Thank you, Melissa and Sonia. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be well. Be well.
Thank you.